everyone. Good evening, and welcome to another Live with Dr. Dawn. Listen, this is season 5 premiere. I am so excited. It's been a long time. It's been months since we last met here on the platform, and it is truly a blessing to be able to do this and bring to you world-renowned, really, individuals in our society, in our communities that have just made a difference in so many lives and actually have just set the path for many of us to be inspired by. So thank you so much again for tuning in to another season of Live with Dr. Dawn. I'm your host, Dr. Dawn 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗧 Brown, double board certified child, adolescent, adult, and sports psychiatrist. I'm actually the owner and operator of 2 private practices where I specialize in one, ADHD, and the other, I actually am a clinician or psychiatrist, a therapist for elite athletes who are in professional organizations. And so tonight, I'm actually bringing on one of my friends who I met about last year, about a year ago, through another mutual friend, and we just clicked. And after hearing his story, I had to bring him on. So this has been a long time waiting to bring on Derek, and I will actually introduce him in a few minutes here. But as you know, what I like to do and ask him for you as your I would like to request for you to do is please let me know that you're here. Go ahead and give us a shout out. Let me know where you're here. Where are you watching from? And if you don't mind, go ahead and push the like button down there below if you're on LinkedIn or if you're on Facebook. And please subscribe. You're on YouTube. Please share with people that you know. We understand that maybe many of us cannot join or many people can't join live, but we would love for them to see this broadcast in the recorded format, because I think this is going to be truly a blessing for many of us here after you meet my guest here. So thank you so much for joining. Hi, hello, Tawana Kim from Canton, Georgia. Thank you so much for joining us from Georgia. Hopefully you had a wonderful Sunday, and I appreciate that you gave us some of your time in your Sunday to join us this evening. So thanks so much, Tawana. And I see some other people trickling in, but I know you haven't shared who's here. So please go ahead and just share who's here. We would love to give you a shout out, and just grateful that you're part of tonight's conversation. So that means that if you have any questions, if you have any comments, I want you to go ahead and share that too on the screen here, okay? So without further ado, I'm actually going to introduce my guest here, and I have a few things that I definitely like to introduce my guest about, and I'm going to read this because I don't want to leave anything out, and I'm going to actually have him bring on and come on and share some additional things that he's been involved in. But, you know, first of all, thanks again. I'm excited to be back for another season. So Derek Devine, he's an accomplished athlete, he's a social justice advocate, he's a minister. Derek has found his purpose and his living his best life, all right? He's a former quarterback for Marshall University, as well as an NFL quarterback, and he played quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks and the Washington Redskins, now the Commanders, an endeavor that only is achieved by 1.2% of college level players. So he is an elite status of his own. From field to the streets, Derek has dedicated his life to helping those in need. He has spent the last 10 years helping men and women and other individuals in the community who are challenged by addictions and social justice issues and abuse and other afflictions through his entrepreneurship initiatives, and as well as his social justice events. He launched a nonprofit workout facility that is home in over 3,000 members monthly and over 300 teens. And I believe he shared with me when we were on another panel that it was during this time where kids could actually go to this workout facility for only $5. Right? And so they would just contribute $5. And here you had an environment that was safe, but that promoted health and well-being where they could work out. So it's really, truly something I'm sure he's proud of. And it really gave youth a positive environment to spend their time after school, particularly to establish these healthy lifestyles. Derek has 10 plus years of ministry experience and loves to minister to men from all walks of life, but he has a special call on his life in helping athletes. So without further ado, I'm actually going to bring on Mr. Devine himself. Derek, hello. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. How you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm pumped.
Oh, hey, listen, this is a
There you
long
go.
time. So Derek and I have been texting back and forth for about at least a month and a half.
Yeah.
And I actually, was trying to get him on here. There were some things that came up in my schedule, and I know he's a busy person as well. But tonight is the night. So thank you so much. Thank you for your family. Come on here and share with us. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for just your time and inviting me. And I really I can't thank you guys enough. I'm just pumped to get on and talk a little bit. So I'm ready to go.
Let's do it because
Yeah.
I don't think they're ready, Derek. This is going to be an interesting conversation. So
Yeah.
I always like to start from the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where
Yeah.
you're from, anything that you would like to share?
Well, I mean, for me, my dad grew up in Los Angeles area. Had a much tougher upbringing than I did. My mom and dad were teachers for a while, and my dad ended up going into business, doing very well for himself, and just provided. I got one younger brother, and just really provided us an amazing childhood. Um, and probably the best thing my dad did when I graduated high school is he said, "It's time, son. It's time for you to get out and kind of start learning what the real world is." We really kind of grew up, kind of like in a cul-de-sac, like the cul-de-sac kid. It was just you just don't know what life is. And he said, "Hey, you really want to play football? Let's do it." And I remember we just kind of went tripping around, and I started my football journey in Northern Arizona. And just kind of redshirted over there, and it was just eye-opening. You just had, when you're just a kid that hasn't been outside of your backyard. And my dad grew up in just downtown Los Angeles, had a very, very rough upbringing, and me and my brother just didn't know nothing about that. So it was the best thing my father ever did. Is it gave me a tremendous respect for just people, life. It was just a huge reality check. I'd realized there's a lot of this world that I don't know about, and there's a lot about people that I don't know about.
Mm-hmm. So interesting. So I know that kind of experience growing up in Flint, Michigan, and then kind of moving to the burbs, right?
Yeah.
And our reason for moving was my parents wanted me to have just kind of a particular education that would really allow me the opportunity and access to be able to really write my ticket. But at the same token, at the time, we had a few break-ins in our home and things of that nature. So, moving to what was considered safer neighborhood. But yes, the cul-de-sac, the kind of the close knit network where the neighbors knew each other, but you didn't really travel too much outside of that because everything was kind of in your community. Right.
100%. Yeah. I remember I was at Northern Arizona for a year, and I went and actually played junior college football in Southern California for a couple of years at a college called 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪. It was a junior college, and stuff was so expensive because you're in LA. Yeah. And I remember I was in 1-bedroom apartments with 5 guys, and it's just you sleeping on the ground because you want to play football. And it was just, and I'm around Black guys, Mexican guys, Samoans. It's like there's just so much, and you're starting to learn so much about just culture and people. And I'm just realizing, man, it was the best, most more educating than any college class ever took. A degree can't give you that. It was just so educational to just learn about people and how you're not. It's like it was almost impossible for me growing up not to think the world just revolves around you.
Right.
And it was so good to get out to realize, man, this place is a whole lot bigger than I thought, and I'm in trouble if I don't start, thinking on my feet. It was the best thing my dad ever did for me.
I know that's right. We have Dr. Igano here. Hi, Dr. Igano. Thanks so much. Josiah, really, right? Thanks so much for joining us. This is who we met through, Josiah, Dr. J. So I was going to ask you, when you are introduced to a whole different environment, particularly at that developmental age of your life, what did it teach you? And you actually shared some of that, right? It was very eye-opening, very, just understanding different cultures and how people may engage differently and how they learn differently, how they, party, whatever, but just kind of just having that the different cultures around you. How did that actually impact you while you're in college? Was there any particular thing that you could recall from college where you appreciated being around different cultures while you were going through it?
It was just, it's like you take the Samoan culture, like the Samoan culture is very family oriented. And so like, I'm away from home and, a lot of the Samoans run with other Samoans. And so it was so sweet. Like they just took me in, nah, man, you gonna room with us, and they're cooking me food, and they're just, it really becomes just, it's almost like you're adopted in. I mean, it's like, I remember, and the majority of my teammates were Black guys, man. And they were just, and they just come from some of the greatest families. I just would go over there and moms would help them with homework, and they, you'd go over there and you'd be right in the fridge. And there was just like, it was like you had like 5 or 6 moms on the team, and you just start learning like, man, this is just, it's just different. It's like, I think the most important thing that I've received is just kind of proper perspective, like being able to see what other people go through, what the other people grow up in. You start really understanding why they make decisions that they make, or they do things they do, or think the way they think, or whatever it is. And I just would have never gained any of that knowledge unless my dad said, no, we're going to go throw you in it. And we got to figure out whether you're going to sink or swim.
Right. Right. I
But
get
a lot of guys don't have that, the suburb lifestyle. And don't get me wrong. It's like, I think that presents its problems and issues in life as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's, the fact that I grew up in the suburbs, and I did have my mom and I did have my dad, and my dad was there at all my games. And my dad, my dad was the type of guy I'll never forget. Every single morning, it was like, he would grind coffee beans before he'd go to work, and it'd be at like 4:00, and then he'd be home at 5. So it's like every day I'm seeing my dad get up, go to work, 12 hours, pay his bills, take us on vacation, and I've had multiple conversations since I've had kids and been married and done all this with my dad to be like, hey, I'm starting to figure out how hard you worked, starting to figure out, why you get mad when the insurance rates hiked up, or, you start to see just, it was perspective. And yes. I think that was really what he was trying to get me to receive in that moment is, hey, I've done my job as a dad up until this point, and now I need to do my job, and this is what's required. You need to realize what the world is. I
love that. And not only teaching it, but showing you by doing it, right?
And I just, I always it's like it's hard, I think, to get a proper view and perspective of people in the world if you're just in the cul-de-sac your whole life. And so that's, really helped provide, proper viewpoints of, what people are going through and, why they would make a decision, or why they would say that, or why they would do that. It really gave you a lot more grace and respect for people, so it's a great learning lesson.
Amen to that. Amen to that. So when did you want to play football? When did that dream come to you? Were you 5, 6? Were you young?
When it's kind of like when I was growing up, they still let us play peewee football, and you still hit each other and tackle. And now they're kind of on all this other concussion protocol stuff. But we never played flag football. I think I started when I was 7.
Mm-hmm.
When the helmets don't fit and the pads don't fit. And it was like, my dad was just like, we're not sitting around on Saturday. We're going to be playing football or baseball or, basketball or something. So, and I started doing it then. And I grew up watching Barry Sanders and the Detroit Lions. And Barry Sanders was the best of the best. And so I was just like, man, I want to do that one day. You never realize that what you're going to have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't realize is how much outside of your control has to happen to, for that to happen. You don't realize just, it's different than, I don't want to downplay anybody's talent or anything, but it's different than tennis or some of those individual sports where you have, if you don't do it, it's because you just didn't do it. Like there's so much, there's 10 other players on there.
Right.
That got to play well for you to play well so that you can get an opportunity.
Right.
And so I guess, you have that dream when you're 6 or 7, and it happens when you're 22 and you don't realize what you got to do from 7 to 22 to make that happen.
Yes. Yes.
So, but yeah, pretty much since I can remember, I didn't want to be a doctor or a lawyer. I just wanted to play football. Yeah.
Just want to play football. So your experience in Marshall, and did you know you wanted to be a quarterback? Is that kind of the position that you've always saw yourself in, or how did that come about for you?
Yeah, I mean, like, well, it's kind of like when you're in Pee Wee football, it's like you can't really throw, or so it's like, well, I want the ball, so it's like I might as well start at the beginning, and so I just kind of started there.
Quarterback gets the ball in every play, right?
Yeah, it's like I played receiver. It's like, man, nobody's giving me the ball. I need to do something. So, and I just was never the fast kid, so they wasn't gonna ever let me run with it. So that was just, everybody always be like, hey, so what kind of quarterback were you? Were you fast? I was like, nah, I just got it to the fast guys. That's not my job. That's not my job, man. No, I just gave it to them so they did something with it. But yeah, I just started young because you want the ball, you want to do something. And
yes.
And then I don't know, it was something I loved because you just could never be perfect at it. It was like you constantly had to perfect a craft. Where, I mean, not to downplay some of the other positions, because some of those other positions are really hard, but just there's so much depth to the quarterback position as far as throwing on the run under pressure. I mean, it's like there's never a same throw almost, because there's always something else happening. And I loved trying to perfect something you couldn't perfect.
Yes. Exactly. They often talk about having the football IQ, right? And understanding how plays come together, and when to pivot, and when to take things in your own hands that wasn't involved. And so I mean, fast paced moving, making decisions. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on at one time, being in that role. I get it. So what was it like for you to hear that there was a possibility of you being prepared and prepped for the NFL? Like, can you tell me about the transition from Marshall and kind of this opportunity of the NFL experience?
Well, they have the NFL Combine, obviously, but not everybody's invited to that. So what they'll have is colleges will have pro days. And I remember I'm from Oregon. I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. So I remember one of my close friends got me on to the pro day at Oregon because they didn't have a quarterback, and they had some really good guys coming out that year. So, I mean, it was almost every NFL team was there. And so, they put you through like 50 or 60 throws because, I had a real long workout because they wanted to see all these receivers and tight ends and running backs. They wanted to see the depth of their abilities. And so, and I just went and had a really, really good day. And phone just started ringing, after the draft, because I hadn't gotten a ton of opportunities at Marshall, but my phone started ringing immediately, free agency after the draft. And Mike Holmgren brought me up for a, kind of like the rookie mini camp, did really well and signed me, to a multi-year deal. And it was just like, it's like something that is going to happen, but you don't. It's you keep telling yourself that, and when it happens, you're still surprised, and it's like, oh, actually, at that moment, you realize, oh, maybe I didn't believe this was going to happen with how surprised I am right now. But also, it's like, we didn't in Portland. You don't have an NFL team, so it was kind of like Seattle was kind of my backyard, and so it's kind of a big deal in Oregon, the fact that an Oregon kid got up there, and so it was. I don't know. It was kind of it's like it's like it's going to happen, but when it does, you're still blown away, So I remember calling my dad when I signed, and he was just like beside himself, crying on the phone, the whole deal. It's like, but the tough thing is you don't, at that point in time, it's a business now.
Yes.
And as a kid coming out, you don't really understand the whole. It's like you don't. At 22, it's like, I mean, I'm 38 now. It's like, man, I wish I could have dumped some knowledge into my 22-year-old self, because you just, you would have. I mean, now the college game's starting to really turn into the business side of things now too. I mean, that's completely transformed. But in college, back when I was playing, it's still just kind of for the love of the game, and now it's really turned into a lot of money stuff. But so there was no real correlation with college football and the NFL in that realm. So you never had you're on scholarship, just hustling to, because you're still scrounging around for money. So, and then you get to the NFL and it's like, man, I didn't think it was going to be all of this, because you're up there with, even when you're 22, you might think you're grown, but you're not, because you're up there playing with 35-year-olds. And it really is, you're coming in and it's like, those guys are grown men with kids and families. And it's like, they're really looking at you like, there's no way you're taking you're taking money out of my pocket and food off my kid's table. And so it's a different environment that I think a lot of me was not prepared for at all.
I want to actually delve deeper into that. Before we get there, however, I wanted to ask you, Derek, because you brought up something interesting. You said that I always knew that it was going to happen, but I didn't know. Was part of that knowing, you telling yourself it would happen, you praying about it or saying it over and over again, or, having posters in your room and saying that's going to be me one day, or writing it down, or like what led to that? What was a part of you knowing that it was going to happen for you?
Probably just being naive.
Okay.
Like, cause if you I look back now, it's like, the chances of that happening are so slim. It was the right guy had to see me, and it's like the right guy had to pick this and the right guy had to pick that. It's like, if that guy doesn't show up on the pro day, cause it's tough, right? There's 32 teams. So there's 32 different scout coordinators with 32 different viewpoints of what a quarterback should look like. And you might not fit it. They might not like you. No, he can't make that throw. He'll never work on our offense. No, he doesn't move like I want him to move. He's not the height we want. There's so many different intangibles that you're not in control of. Right. Where it's like, if I'm a wrestler, or if I'm a tennis player, or I'm a golfer, or whatever, it doesn't really matter if I'm 5'6", or your swing speed's better than mine. If I beat you, you lost. Deal with it. Where in the NFL, it's just not the case. A lot of it is, where did we draft him and where did we draft you? What did we pay him? What did we pay you? It's like there's just a lot of scenarios. I came in going against like 5th round draft picks and things like that. Well, they paid them and didn't pay me. So who's going to play? It's like, well, how do you convince somebody, hey, we invested here and we didn't here, but let's keep the person we didn't invest with.
Right.
So you don't think about that. And so I think because of it was like, my lack of knowledge led me to be so naive to think it's like, oh, of course this is going to happen. Interesting. But I guess that's probably why I was surprised. And now that I look back at it now more, I think I'm even more surprised to say, yeah, no, I did that. Right. It's just, I don't know. At least that's just been my story. Like, a lot of stuff has to happen for something to go right. Outside of the 1st and 2nd round draft picks.
And that is, you've actually reiterated that so many times. And I think that is such an important point, because you're right. A lot of these guys out here are so talented. When I'm talking about the NFL, meaning guys, so talented. So you're not just competing against yourself on that day where it's a combine and, you just happen to do well. Yeah. You're competing against, like you're saying, other contenders for the same position, who may have, in how you describe the different characteristics, features, the swing, throw, whatever, the run, the speed. And so it's the pressure of it all, right? The pressure just to be there. So sometimes being naive may be a blessing in disguise for some. Yeah. Sometimes being confident may be that, kind of the trick in the toolbox for some people. But I appreciate and thankful and grateful for how, you're open and genuine about, kind of the mindset that you had, because that statistic was from when you were actually drafted, that 1.2% of college level athletes make it into the NFL.
Well, and you're dead on too, because it is the one thing you're not naive to is there's a chance I'm not going to be here next week. Like, that's real. And so for me, it was like, it's kind of like when I'm in the facility, I'm one guy. When I leave the facility, I'm another guy. Because when I'm in the facility, it's like, man, I got to keep this together. I belong here. I got to make sure that I have all of my film study done. All of our installs here today. When I am giving reps, I better show up. And then when you're leaving, you're just constantly thinking about like, dude, man, is my phone going to ring? Someone going to knock on my door today? Am I going to be here tomorrow? Like, what else are we inputting? What did I not do well today? You don't have, unfortunately, I was always in the place where you were never guaranteed a spot. There's a lot of guys going to camp and it's like, no matter how they play, they finna be here. Like, you're not going to part ways with the amount of money you just gave me. So I got a roster spot. I didn't have that opportunity. And I think for a lot of guys are in that boat. And I think it provides them more stress than they would care to really dive into, because I know it did for me.
Right.
It's every day, Right.
As you talk about and listen and kind of, give us some great insight into some of the pressures that many of the players, particularly yourself, experience going through this kind of, transition in your career and in your life and becoming football player. Can you tell me how that relates to the perceptions of fans and how they view this, for them, for me as a fanatic, it's kind of like my downtime, my pastime. It's kind of how I let my anxiety go. Whereas in my understanding that the people I'm looking at, a lot of them are, overwhelmed with anxiety. It's not fun for everybody that we're looking at and that we're yelling at, that we're encouraging, that we're screaming for. A lot of these athletes have a tremendous amount of pressure, depressions, anxiety, stress. And we're just talking about them as a player. I didn't even talk about your life outside of the field.
Oh, exactly.
Arena. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's very important for viewers and for fans to really understand that. And I don't think athletes talk about that enough.
No, what's tough too is there's such in the NFL and probably the NBA, and I know that there's a little bit of a different, with baseball, AAA and AA, but all those guys are trying to get to the majors. There's such a limited pool of opportunity. What's tough is, like, my biggest thing was, am I about to be 22 and not necessarily unemployed, but like unpurposed? Like, am I going to be 22 and not know what I'm going to do with my life? Because the thing is like, I was always had the mindset of, if I make a plan B, then I'm not committed to plan A. Like, I've already, like, that was just never my get-go. I'm going to grind for plan A, and plan A is finna happen. And if there needs to be a plan B, we'll figure that out on the fly. Like, we're not going to build a foundation and really put work into that. And so for me, what was tough is, it's like, man, I'm 22, 23, 24. And what am I doing? Like, is my phone going to ring? Because there's only 32 employers, and you don't know how many of those employers are even really looking for somebody of your skill set. So maybe I have 4 employers. It's not like I have, 4 million real estate jobs in the United States of America where they're just begging me to come, or management positions, or waiters and waitresses. It's like, no, there's such a limited pool. And how long am I going to fit in that pool? Because every guy that comes into the league, rookie year, doesn't matter if they're a first round draft pick or they just got flown in on a plane ticket as a free agent, all those guys believe, I'm going to be here in 10 years. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to be in Canton. Mm-hmm. Like, they all believe, like, nobody's up there thinking like, man, I just love being here for today. It's like, nobody's thinking that.
Right.
And so it's that, I think, is the toughest thing, where I don't necessarily think fans ever really think of that. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, you do know they're cutting guys in the middle of the season.
Mid-season.
Like, it's Monday morning. We didn't really like what you're doing, and we got another guy on the wire we like better than you. Bye-bye. And they're just, you know what I mean? And with as much money as they're making, they are willing to part ways with more money than they ever have before. Mm-hmm. And so there's only a select few guys up at that level that are really untouchable. Like, they're going to get to really kind of ride out in the sunset in their own time.
Right.
But that's tough too, because that's who you see everywhere on NFL Network. You're seeing the Peytons and the Elis and the, and just the top end running backs and all the high end wide receivers and all those guys that are just getting major checks. And it's like, well, yeah, those guys are going to be there, but you don't see the other 99% of the league that's just showing up like, man, I just want to be here next week. I want to be here for week 4.
Right.
Right. And that was just kind of like, man, for me, I just want to make this final cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
And try to gain some momentum. And, so I don't think the fans necessarily think about it like that. They're just thinking, oh, Monday Night Football is tomorrow. I can't wait. When they're not really thinking about, well, what's going to happen that, Tuesday morning, So
exactly.
I think that's a big thing for me.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much, Derek. Because, it's your career versus this is just kind of how we're thinking about Sunday, Monday, or my fantasy, who got the most points. And so
it's exactly what it is. Cause you don't think like, that's the thing. It is your career. And now you got to find a different one.
Right.
Like, cause it's like, what are you going to do? Go to a job interview? Like, hey, I can throw a football really well. It's like, okay, well, we don't need that here. So, what else can you do? It's like, it's cool to say you did it, but those job skills didn't help any other job I did in that type of, like the discipline I got from it, the teamwork aspect, all those things, those were benefits of it for sure. But it's tough because it's all you've done your 20, for 20 years. And where do you go now? That was probably my biggest transition is, well, who am I now that this is over?
Yes.
Because I don't get to say, oh, yeah, I'm Derek and I play for the Redskins right now. Right. I'm Derek and I just got cut and I don't have a house. I'm not married and I don't have a job. Mm-hmm. That's Derek. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I'm 4 years out of college. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of it's a tough gig. It's a tough transition. I mean, I was telling you off the air, it's like I was at the gym with a friend today and he's telling me about how he's got an ex-Cardinal that works with him. And it's like, well, you're a mortgage broker. Nobody thinks some guy who played for the Cardinals is going to be, working on your financing for your home.
Right.
And it's just, I think it was for me. And I think it is for other guys. It's a really hard transition out of that.
And let's give a shout out to the 98% of guys that are on the team. Shout out to y'all. We love you all. Yeah. Because what we see and like we have our favorites, right? And they're usually in the limelight. They're usually of certain calibers that are, so shout out to the 98% of the other guys that, have this tough time that you're describing for many of them. And they don't have anything to fall back on if they were injured or if they were cut or, going from team to team, not understanding or knowing, well, am I going to be here longer? So let me ask you, so your time in NFL, enjoyable, had a good time, and I want you to answer that. And then the part B to that is, what was the decision because my understanding is that you actually left the game.
Yeah.
It wasn't a situation where the game left you, in other words, or,
Yeah. I mean, it's the NFL, I think was, despite it not always in and on your terms, the fact that I've had the opportunity to do that was so unique and so special. And so it's like, there is such a positive, element with that, my first game I played in was at Lambeau Field and I got to play in Canton, Ohio. And there's so many cool experiences that you had. And it was really special. For me, it's like, just wish it lasted longer. You got to do other things. But, for me, it was the greatest help would have been somebody coming to me and saying, hey, I know you got this plan A with football. That's great. But what else are you interested in? Like, hey, no, let's keep going full speed on football. Let's keep training. Let's keep doing that. But either way, say we're talking you're 40 and you're done. Well, what do you want to do? What do you like? And I wish I would have had somebody coming along to say, where are you at? And, for me, being a Christian playing football, I had the opportunity to really get into ministry in and out of playing and trying to be back in and be out and off season, playing and all that. And I really got to start working with guys in addiction And it got to the point where I had the opportunity to really start that workout facility you'd kind of brought up. And, my phone rang to play again. And I had gotten close with a guy in the recovery program. And I was just like, it's just not worth it anymore. Like, the grind is just not worth it. It's not providing me. It's like it never gave back to me. Like, the game's great, but it's like, it's not like, the football's done so much for me. I don't want to be real negative towards it, but it's like, football isn't looking out for you. It's like, it's almost kind of like a love you're always chasing. That love isn't chasing you. And for me, it was like, I would rather spend my time giving back and helping somebody, even if it's this one individual guy right now. I would rather do that than do this anymore. And it was the best decision of my life. It was something that was really, really special. And we're best friends today. He's been married 5 years, a couple of days ago. It was 10 years clean. Is just a great human, great Christian, great man, great father. And so, I don't know. It's like, you don't know what you're doing when I did that. It's like, you don't really think about it, because I still spent several years missing the game and shoulda, woulda, couldas and all that other stuff. But when I really got to center myself and get down to what it was, and really hear what Jesus had to say about, as a Christian, what I should be doing with my life, I knew that was the right thing to do. And it was, it helped me probably more, in my opinion, than I think it helped him, because it was kind of like, for the first time in my life, I'm not thinking about my plan A all the time. Because plan A really involves nobody else but you, and selfish environment. And unfortunately, I was pretty selfish in that environment for myself, because it was, it's never enough, right?
Right.
Like, I have to do, this is what I have to do to get here. And so if this is what I have to do today to get there, and you can't get in the way of me having to do this. And so it was the first time. It was as embarrassing as it is. I think I was like 29. So it took me till I was 29 to make a selfless decision in my life. So yeah, but it was really good. It was something that I needed.
There was a sermon that I watched of you.
Okay.
And the sermon actually talked about, it was a sermon where Peter was basically in the boat, right?
Yeah.
And God called him out to walk on the water toward him, right?
Yeah.
And I love that sermon. First of all, I love that scripture, because I think that leading up to that scripture, the story behind leading up to the scripture and the actual scripture, and then the result of that, there's so many stories that we can delve into from just those, particular scriptures.
Yeah.
But I loved how you actually taught that, what you've learned from that, and the focus of your sermon was something like, well, do we ever ask God if this is for me? Like, what about this? So, when doors open or opportunities come, I'm actually guilty in saying that was none but God. I know this, that, I prayed about it. I met the people I needed to meet. They were helpful in opening the door. I just walked right through, and God has already prepared me to just go ahead and do it, right? And I automatically think that God is backing me on this, because the doors are open and the opportunity is there. But did I actually ask, is this what you want from me? And that was so humbling for me. It was humbling in how you just told the story and kind of what you received from those scriptures, because I don't know if I really ever got that from that story. So I was very humbled and blessed by that. Do you feel that God actually, I'm putting you on the spot here, did you ever ask God if football was for you? Or was this something later on that you asked and it was like, wait a minute, I'm called to do and minister in another kind of way to others?
No, I don't ever recall really. I think I'd be lying if I said I knew that he wanted me to do all this. I think what happened was, you have an element of somebody that worked just religiously and selfishly, and religious in a negative standpoint for myself. And I reap the rewards of hard work. I think that's no different than, you don't have to be a Christian to be successful in life. It's like, or successful athletically, or, I mean, some of the most talented players I ever played with weren't Christians. They were just really good. They were really fast. They had great work ethics. It's just, and what I really feel is God was like, no, you got to the NFL because you worked hard, son. Like you put more time in the weight room, put more time in the field. It's like, so it's like, I think a lot of what God says in the Bible really equates to Christianity or just the world. You're going to reap what you sow. And I reaped hours and hours and hours and hours and days, weeks, months, years of training. And that provided that. And a lot of times in my life, I don't want to speak for everybody, but in my life, it's very easy to sit here and mistake success for God's blessing. And mistake an open door for God's blessing. It's like, no, I mean, you're a talented individual. Opportunities are going to present themselves. That's just kind of how I believe that's how it works. It's how it's worked for me. And I do believe it's very easy to get those wires crossed. And so I don't feel I ever heard God tell me, oh, I have designed you for the NFL, because I don't think he does that for anyone. I do think God has designed somebody athletically. It can be part of their calling to play in the NFL for that season of their life. And because they're talented, doors get opened and they play really well, and God blesses their hard work and God blesses their life. But I don't think God makes somebody, oh, he's going to be in the NFL. That's why we've made him. It's like, no, that's not at all. I think there are definite guys in the NFL that love Jesus, that are Christians, that are actually there truly to play football because they love it, but to use that platform to whatever it is to make change or help people. Or there's a lot of guys up there that are really huge advocates of orphanages and cities and communities and all that. So I don't want to downplay any of that. I just don't think God says, oh no, it's my calling on your life to play in the NFL. I think that's part of someone's walk, and their calling on life is for you to do well with what God's given you.
What has been your calling, your true calling? What would you say that has been for you?
I feel like my true calling is just mentoring men, accountability with men. I just feel God has called my passion and my ministry just to men. And I learned a lot about that just within working with guys in recovery, and God just really provided me such wisdom to help men and just relate and be there and develop friendships. And the crazy part is you see so many similarities with guys that are meth addicts and heroin addicts as you do with guys in the NFL. It's a different dysfunction that displays itself differently. Like, well, that guy is dysfunctional. His dysfunction didn't lead to meth, because that guy's dysfunction that led to meth was because that was the environment he was surrounded in and raised in. But like, my dysfunction was obsessive work ethic, and everything else got shut out. Nothing was allowed to get in the way. Everything else gets put on the back burner because I am doing this. And I know there was a large part of the beginning of my marriage where that was my viewpoint, and my wife was on the back burner. And it was like, I wish I could go back to say, hey, you know what? This should be below you. Like, my life's out of order right now. And so I feel my time with working with those guys in recovery and my time in athletics, I just have such a desire and feel such a calling to really like mix those and really be able to take the mentoring and the lessons that I've learned, the, perspective that really, I think that kind of came full circle with my father just saying at 18, get out of the house, let's go. I want to really take a lot of what God has shown me into, professional sports, because I think there's just a lot of guys that just need a friend, need somebody just to be able to check out with talk candidly with, and because the facility at times just isn't the place for it. Because it's almost like I got to check into my alter ego when I go in here in a way. It's like I'm going to be Bruce Wayne out, Bruce Wayne out here, but there I got to be Batman because I can't be weak. I have to focus. I can't talk about my weaknesses. I can't talk about my worries. I can't talk about my stress. I can't talk about my marriage and my kids and all this other stuff. And being able to pastor for those 10 years, I got to talk to guys about their marriage and their stresses and their wife and their kids and getting their kids back and getting out of addiction and just trying to not be an addict tomorrow and getting married and completely transforming my life and graduating my recovery program. And, and so I want to be able to mix both those worlds if I have the opportunity.
That's amazing. That's amazing because, when working with athletes and elite athletes, particularly football players, for example, when do you learn these lessons? When do you learn them? Do you learn them in, of course, our parents are blessing unto us, right? Because we are, to them.
I mean, you've been up there, Dr. Don. It's like a lot of guys don't have that.
Exactly.
They don't have dad every day. I think the father's number one job is identity. Yeah. And it's like, it's sad. It's like there's a lot of grown men up there that don't have an identity because dad didn't tell them. Right. And so you're dead on. That's the tough part.
Yeah. Yes. So what I think you're doing is remarkable and it truly defines your success. Would you agree with that? Do you feel that our success, I talk about this with another friend of mine who we feel that our gift on this earth is to give. We were created to give, right? That's just our gift. I mean, I feel that's what we're created to do. Yes. So, I don't feel that I'm on this earth and I don't equate my success to, my career, goals and accomplishing them or accomplishing, my goals in certain areas of my life. I create or equate my success to who have I helped today? Who has benefited from the work that I put in and shared it with them, because I believe there's room for everyone, but I also believe that we were created to share our gifts and talents with everyone, right?
100%.
We were given something to share it with others, like just don't hold on to it. So, that's kind of how I look at success. And with that being stated, it's just been a blessing because I feel like the abundance has to continue just to come and come and come and come and come. And I just try to share that, like with my mentees, particularly who don't necessarily have, the outside of parent influence or encouragement, being that person to say, hey, this is kind of how it's happened for me, but it's about my mindset and how I view things. And it's really genuine and I live it. So would you say that your success has been in, helping the person who's now married 5 years and, you're 10 years as a minister and having one-on-one work with people in recovery and seeing and witnessing the benefits of being a part of their journey?
Oh, 100%. Well, and you're dead on. It's like what I've tried to tell a lot of those guys is, well, now it's your job to go do that for someone else, because I really feel God's design is like there's people that you come into contact with that I could never help. Like your expertise, the way you talk to them, the way you deal with them, the way you handle them, the way you know them, how you make them feel they can trust you. There's so many different environments, and that's what I've tried to convince all the guys I've had opportunities to mentor. It's like there's going to be guys you come into contact with that there might be something about me they don't trust, but they trust you.
Yes.
And so I agree completely with that, because there's people you come into contact with that if they only came into contact with me, I probably couldn't help them. I could help some of them, but that outlook is so powerful because you start to realize that God's putting people in your path that only you could help to the levels you're helping them.
Oh, yes. That will preach now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't realize how much it kind of does for you though, within doing that, like I would have I would have never thought some guy that was a meth addict in a recovery program would have changed my life perspective, Christianity, the way it did.
Yes.
Or at all.
Yes.
You know, that's taught me it's like you can learn anything from anyone. Like you can get something from anyone.
That's right.
From anyone.
That's right.
You know, and so
just have to be open to it. Have to be open to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always tell that when I work with parents. I always say that about their kids. I said, hey, it's time to learn from your kids now.
Oh gosh, it's like my kids come every day, every single day. Yeah, I tell you, you don't realize how much you forget until like my daughter will come home with third grade homework. Is like, when did I do that? Like I don't even. Go ask your mom. I don't.
You're struggling. Like, wait a minute. Like,
and they're coming home and be like, "Hey, Dad, guess what I learned about today?" And they're telling me stuff. I'm like, I didn't know that. Nope, didn't know that either. It's just like, I need to get in a book.
Exactly. What so what are you doing now, Derek? Like, what is kind of going on in your life right now that you would love to share? And please, I mean, I would love the audience to know, what you're doing now, and if there's a way to work with you. I don't know, please just share.
I mean, I'm really in just kind of a season of transition. We had just relocated to Phoenix, and my wife's working for a church down here, and she's loving it. And I am working with some guys that I played with in Seattle, really trying to get some stuff going with a kind of just like a mentoring transitional based program in the NFL and college football. But I have just a passion for ministry and people. And so I'm really looking for opportunities, wherever they come, and I'm open to whatever God wants to do. But I'm definitely in kind of a season of really looking for kind of what's next. So that's where I'm at.
Amen. Is there anything you would like to share about, because you've talked in, the intricacies of faith and how it's kind of led you through, and I know you've shared some of that. Is there anything else you would like to add in addition to just kind of your overall story and journey of where you've come from and where you are now that you feel is important?
I would just say, like, the biggest thing that has helped change my life is having strong men in it that I allow to have a voice in my life, because I had a great dad that did above and beyond better than what he was raised with. But it was so powerful to have like older guys in my life to actually know me, because it's really easy to say, "Hey, how you doing?" "Hey, I'm doing great." And it's like, but I want a guy that's like, "Are you doing great?" Like really like, like the 3 words that everybody kind of walks through their entire day is like, "How are you?" Like really, like, how are you? And so that's what's changed my life, is just having friends, having guys that are, that know me and are able to see when something's off and when something's wrong, and being willing to hear them say something I don't necessarily want to hear, but I know it's real. Because I think at times, it's really easy. I've seen within myself, maybe this applies to other people, where it's very easy to lack transparency and an element of reality. And so I always want guys in my life that are like, "Hey, let's get transparent about some of this stuff, because this isn't where it should be, and hey, this isn't hitting, and hey, that's off, man. You need to clean that up. And hey, this is, and so I would just say that's benefited my life greatly. Not even just as a Christian, but I mean, as a husband, as a father, as just a regular person in life, that has helped me. And so it's not like you have to be a Christian for that to work for you. It's like, no, you just have to be a regular person, and having people that know you, because I just know we as people are just designed for community and friends and people. And so it's, that's just kind of what keeps me safe, keeps me on, on point and where I need to be at. So that's what I would say is, find somebody that you can truly trust, that's safe. That's a safe place that truly is there for you to help benefit you and wants the best for you and what, and what you're going after and all that. So that's probably what I would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Strong advice, because we're social beings and we're made for connection. You're exactly
100%. Even if you're the introvert of introverts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You might just need less people time, but you need people time. Yeah. And so you might be more quiet. I get it, but you still need some noise,
Right. That's so true. And if anything, the pandemic has taught us that, right? If anything, because it's taught us that we don't really fully have control over certain elements of this world. And when we've lost some of these, privileges and access and, connections, who are we and how do we function and how do we feel? And I mean, a lot of people spend a lot of time with themselves, and it was very eye-opening. I know it was for me. It was very eye-opening, especially as an extrovert. It was very eye-opening.
Yeah.
And so it just changed my whole mindset and world, and how balance is so important for me now, that I'm able to do that. Because
how much did that help your work though?
My work? Oh, wow.
From an education standpoint, that time, as hard as it must have been, that probably provided you quite a bit of perspective in helping people down the road, didn't it?
It did. It did. And I think that with being virtual, because I have a virtual practice, I've been virtual since 2014. I was trying to really encourage my colleagues.
You were ahead of the game. You were ready to go.
Way ahead of the game. Yeah. And so, I was used to seeing people online. That's what I did. And so, but it destigmatized the experience for many people who've previously had stigma surrounding their mental wellness. And so now they were having the conversations that they needed to have, that they wanted to have, they should be having, because everyone has mental health, right? Every single last one of us does. It's non-discriminatory. 100%. All of us do, which, don't get me on my soapbox, because I will go on and on about this.
If somebody would have told me I had mental health issues, I would have been like, no, I don't. And then you start realizing how much, especially when I was playing, how much you're in your head. I was crazy. You're just it's all the time. So it's like, no, you're and I know the first time that I had a conversation with you, you were saying some stuff and it was like, oh, that's me. Yeah, that was me too. Oh, it's because it's so true. And I don't know, you've hit on that so clearly of, it's like, hey, yeah, this is something, but there's good in it. There's a purpose in it. We can learn something from it. We can use it. We can use it as a benefit. It's like, yeah. So I'm completely on board with everything you're talking about.
Yes. And thank you so much for being that, because like you said, that, we all, I'm not everyone's psychiatrist. I'm not everyone's person. And, you may not be that for everyone, but collectively together, we can actually refer, we can open these conversations like we're doing now. Someone is listening to us right now who's been wanting to make that step in their life where they know they're not what they are doing right now or wanted to do, but they feel led and called to do something different. Right. Yeah. And it's just taking that one conversation like this to make that fit, that leap of faith to say, hey, listen, go out and ask God, is this for me? And man.
Well, it's providing them that, like we talked about, it's providing them that community.
Exactly.
It's providing them somebody.
That's right.
That's just shining light on an issue. And I think that does so much. I think that brings such a relief for somebody to just say, okay, well, I can help you with that.
Amen.
Or, oh, hey, let's work on this, and so I wish I could have implemented that even earlier,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So God's timing.
It is
perfect, right?
Yeah. It's so true.
Derek, thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for being my opener, my season 5 opener. I thought this was an incredible conversation. I wanted to make sure that you were the first person that I had a conversation with, because I knew you would lay the groundwork for what's to come. My purpose in this season is really about season of intention. season of purpose, season of destiny. And so just having people on and talking about that, what's the purpose of life? What's the purpose of my role? What's the purpose in this world? You know, and how everyone sees that, you know, through their deity or through their job. I mean, we're just going to have some wonderful, beautiful, and eye-opening conversations where, you know, people can feel led and encouraged. And so thank you for being the first guest. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Everybody has a purpose. That's so good, because I think a lot of times I've done this before. It's like you look at somebody like, oh, well, they just have that. That's just their purpose. And it's like, yeah, but that person can't do what God has designed you to do.
Right.
Or they don't have the skill set you have. Even if you want to take God completely out of it, there's so many people with a skill set that so many people don't have. Yeah.
Please say that one more time. Everyone has a purpose, and maybe everyone doesn't have the same skill set. Yes. Room for every one of us.
Well, it's like, that's the thing. It's like, well, if they had a world full of one person, we'd be in trouble. It's like, no, it's like there's a skill set you have that somebody else doesn't have. And there is a group of people that only you can impact.
That's right.
You know, and it's just, whether it's your job or whatever it may be, you know, it's I love that. That's the motto for this season. That's good.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Don't go anywhere, Derek. I'm just going to actually just close out. I'll be right back. Okay. But thank you everyone for joining. Please share this with everyone you know. Derek, if you don't mind, I'm going to actually share your handle just in case someone,
please.
They want to connect with you and what you're doing and follow what you're doing in your season of transitions and being a blessing unto others. That is his actual handle on IG. So please feel free to follow Derek and all the wonderful things that he's bringing to this world. Thanks again for coming on. I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, you all, that is it. We are wrapping up the first episode of season 5 of Live with Dr. Dawn. Listen, I appreciate everyone that has shared this time with us this evening. Thanks so much. I know there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of family time being shared this evening. So thank you again for taking time out of your day to spend it with us live. And don't forget, please share this with other people that you know who didn't have an opportunity to engage with us this evening, because we also want to be a blessing unto them. And what was said, there were many things that were stated. Derek was such a blessing to us this evening. So I really just hope that you all share this so that someone can also be blessed as well. Thanks again. I appreciate you. Thank you, Donald. Thanks so much, Tawana. Thanks so Josiah for coming on. I appreciate you, brother. And you all have a wonderful evening. Take care. Be safe out there. All right. Bye.